I'm Mega Mike, the movie man, and today we got a mega movie plan. Today we are feeling the need for speed. We are here for the Top Gun Maverick pregame show. I hope everybody is ready. Everybody brought their drinks of choice. This is going to be a fun pregame show here, and I'm joined today, of course, by a co-host. Go ahead and co-host, introduce yourself to the audience.
Hello, Last American Girl here, returning for Mega Mike's pregame shows. Excited to go on and big fan of Top Gun, so I'm excited to go into this new movie.
So, Last American Girl, are you feeling the need for speed as well?
I am. I'm
Yes.
so
Oh,
excited for this movie.
me too. I'm getting so much more excited for this movie. We got 10 questions, the usual. We're going to go through today for this pregame show to get our hype level going, keep that excitement going in to the weekend for this new release. So let's start with our first question here to get us warmed up. What do we think of the first Top Gun movie? Now, I've seen this movie a couple times. I actually have the 4K steelbook. So I popped this one in again last night, watched it all the way through, and wow, this movie is so fun and just has so many iconic moments within it. It's just such a great little movie, and it's kind of odd too though, but it gives you those good 80s feels, and it does things in this movie that it shouldn't do as a movie. Like, it will have an anthem at the beginning, but then I'll switch right to some rock and roll music. Like, it'll mix it together. Like, what is going on here? This movie is breaking all the rules, but it's just a fun movie. It is the jet fighter pilot movie. I mean, what other movie can you think of that does that this well? Last American Girl, just what are your initial thoughts on the first Top Gun movie?
I love Top Gun, the first one. As you were saying, we've both only seen this movie a couple times. The first time I watched it was probably 3 to 4 years ago, so fairly recent. I saw it in the theaters, and I was just blown away.
Wait, you got
It's
to see it in the theaters?
Yeah, the movie theater does like Thursday night classics or something where they play an old movie for $5 on a certain day of the week.
See, oh,
And
I'm so jealous of that. I wish I seen this on the big screen. Oh my goodness.
so it was so cool. I love military movies. I'm a sucker for military movies, and this one was just I was so impressed by it because, like you said, it's an '80s movie, but you don't feel it like the way it was made. It's just so classic feeling,
Very
and
timeless of a movie, right? It still holds up to
mhm,
today.
yeah, and and just the aspects of it, how they incorporated so much of the cinematography with the flights, and it's a friendship story, but it's also a romantic story, but like a self growth story at the same time. It's just a beautifully made movie, fantastic, 10 out of 10.
Ooh, that's a high score. That's a perfect
Mhm.
score right there. Ooh, I don't know if I can get it that high of a score, but definitely highly recommend it. If anybody hasn't seen it yet, you gotta see this movie. That's your homework this week before you go to see Top Gun Maverick. Gotta do that. All right, so this leads us perfectly into our second question here. What do we think of the characters and iconic scenes from the first Top Gun movie? To me, the characters make this movie. Maverick, Tom Cruise is so good in this character role. Like, when I think of a Tom Cruise movie, I go Top Gun. This is the first movie that pops into my mind. And he just does such a good job as being a relatable character. And you really relate to what he's going through. And, he's trying to prove things to like his dad that isn't there anymore and things like that. Like, he wants to, that's why he takes on all these big risks. And you can see like he's really going for some things to try to prove something. And oh, I just love that so much. But then you have all the other characters too that balance out the movie. You got Goose as well, which is great. He's just like the fun buddy. You need that in there. Good friendship and bond. And then all the other characters as well going to the flight academy. You got Iceman, right? Val Kilmer as Ice. He's great in the movie. And he's not really a villain in the movie. He's more of a rival. But he's a rival that I appreciate him as the rival. Like he's still a good guy. He's
Uh,
just winning things. Like he's not like a evil villain or anything like that. He's just, Maverick's rival, and they have a good little banter back and forth there. And all the names are great, right? Maverick, Ice, Goose, Hollywood, Wolfman. Like just hearing all these catchy names are fantastic in the movie. And
and how their like helmets are all decorated with them. That's so good.
yes, like how do they come up with these names? They're just so fun. And the love interest works really good in the movie. I think, what's the last name of the love interest actor? Is it Mitchell or something like that?
So
But yeah, she's really good in the movie too. So you totally buy into that relationship. And yeah, it's just a good group of characters. What do you think, Last American Girl, of the characters in this movie?
like you said, the characters is what really makes the movie. We've got Tom Cruise as the Maverick, and this is, as you said, the typical Tom Cruise action, cocky movie, and that's awesome. And his wingman in multiple ways, Goose, just kind of comedic and funny, but still a family man, still with his values, and the love our love interest, absolutely beautiful. And it's always so refreshing to, in an 80s movie, a movie that's so old, to see someone who's a doctor with a PhD, a woman, in that role in so long ago. So I think that's what also plays into how timeless this movie has become. And not so much a main character here, but Goose's wife is played by Meg Ryan, which is one of my favorite actresses.
But she
So
does a great job for the part she
mhm,
has.
yeah, yeah, and she really, she's only in it for like what, 5 minutes, 5 minutes, but
Yes, but the
her
the scene is
time,
perfect though. That singing piano scene. Oh my,
beautiful.
so good.
And even like when she goes up to Maverick after Goose's death, and how she's the one consoling him, so you can tell that these two just loved him so much.
Oh yeah, that
Mhm.
scene is one of my favorite scenes. Just where they all start like singing with the piano, the kids there on the piano, and they're all just
Mhm.
together bonding. That's one of my favorite scenes in the movie. And there's so many good scenes here that are just iconic. Of course, all the jet flying sequences, like this is a jet flying
Um,
movie. I mean, it's just so realistic because they actually use real like Navy jets, like
yeah,
just how they film it. You feel like you're
it's
there
like this is the
in the jet.
80s that they're
I know,
doing
like,
this
how do you
in.
do this in the 80s? You see some other movies from 80s and 90s, and you're like, oh, the effects here are so wonky and just out
Mhm.
of place. They don't keep up till today. But this looks like a movie that wasn't filmed too long ago. So it's so impressive how
Hmm.
they can do that. So I love all the jet flying sequences. Also, the volleyball sequence is great. It is so random. It is so random, just a complete tone change for the movie, but it's so iconic now. It's like, I don't
Yeah.
know, I'm just having fun watching this scene. Last American Girl, what
Why
are
is
some,
everyone so shirtless in this movie?
but it makes it so iconic. It's just like it stands out. Hey, they're built for a reason. You gotta have the shirtless volleyball scene. You gotta have it in there. You just have to.
Yeah.
Um, it's like the machismo, macho type of thing. They're just like they're just trying to show off, right? It is
Mhm.
perfect for this movie.
Yeah,
Um,
we've always found that scene hilarious. And just like, I mean, every time you watch that scene, like you feel something different with it. So like you said, iconic. Yeah, like the flight scenes are just so impressive with how they're filmed. And the I like both of the singing numbers, the piano one we were just talking about, and the one at the beginning where they're at the bar.
oh yes, yes.
Yeah, I think that's those two scenes are probably my favorite.
The scenes are so good in there, and like I think of more as we're talking about them. Like the
Mhm.
romance scenes are really good too. Like
Yeah,
it's like,
also iconic.
yeah,
Ooh.
well, and the music they play with it as well. Like this movie, Like the music
Ah,
goes perfectly with every single scene. Like the score for this movie is great. The soundtrack is great. Like I can just play this movie in the background and have a good time listening to it. So
yeah.
it's just a
While you're on the music, really, it's two songs that really stand out to me, which is
highway
the
to the
first one.
danger
Yeah,
zone.
that one, the Danger Zone, that
Yeah.
classic song, and it's just that hype and excitement. And then the Take My Breath Away, and
Yes, that's
how
perfect in
they
that
those
scene.
two are such clashing songs, but they work so well in this movie, and it's and how it like kind of focuses on the romance, because every time like there's something going on, it's that song playing. It's the same song over and over,
I
but
this
they build it.
I it's like this movie is so odd in so many ways. Just once again,
Mhm.
how it's put together, like even just from a like story standpoint, like it does things you're not expecting. Like you get to the goose scene you were mentioning, right? And that like
Yeah.
that could really be like the ending of the movie, like so tragic and things like that. But then the movie it keeps going on, and then they have another iconic like third act basically with jet fighter sequences, but you really don't know too much about the villains. Like it doesn't give you much background story on the villains. You just know you're rooting for Maverick to kind of get back to what he's used to doing. And so,
Mhm.
like how this movie is just set up, and the tones will change randomly. Like we'll have the bar, singing sequence. We'll have the volleyball sequence thrown in there. Like so, there'll be like really somber moments. Then there'll be just fun, like random, like heartfelt moments. Like it's all over the place, and so it breaks all the rules of filmmaking, but it works. Like a lot of movies can't pull it off. This movie totally does. It is so great.
Does.
So many iconic scenes. So this leads us to our third question here. What are some of our favorite Tom Cruise movies so far? Of course, Top Gun is my favorite Tom Cruise movie. But when I think of other Tom Cruise movies, I kind of remember his younger days when he was in The Outsiders. Also, the movie Legend, which is like a fantasy adventure movie. And he's like super, super young in that movie. If you want to see a super young Tom Cruise, go watch Legend. It's super cheesy with the fantasy effects nowadays. But those are the movies I initially think of. And then, of course, I know he's known for the Mission Impossible movies. Now, I have to admit something. I haven't ever seen a Mission Impossible movie. I know, shame on me.
Oh
I have to, I
no.
know, I have to. I am planning before the next movie comes out to get like a 4K collection or at least Blu-ray and just
Okay.
marathon them all the way through. But
And then
last
rank them and let me know.
yes, I would love to oh, wait, have you seen them Last American Girl?
I've seen all of them.
Okay.
I have a oh, I think I took it down. I had a Ghost Protocol poster in my room for the longest time.
And I heard that one was really good, and even
That
the
was my
last one,
favorite.
Fallout, was really good, right?
Mhm.
And so what other Tom Cruise movies do you think of?
Like you said, normally when I think of Tom Cruise, I think of him younger in the 80s. The first one that popped into my head was Risky Business.
Oh, yeah.
uh, I'm not sure if how that stands up as a movie itself, but it
Has
definitely
some iconic scenes, though.
exactly that every college party gets themed as a risky business one at some Halloween. And it, my list was just ranking the Mission Impossibles, Ghost Protocol being my favorite, and Mission Impossible 3 was also my one of my tops there. I've actually never seen The Outsiders.
Oh, you gotta see The Outsiders. It's pretty good. It's not like one of my favorites of all time, but it's a Francis Ford Coppola movie. So, the
Ooh,
director that did The
mhm,
Godfather and all that. So,
yeah.
uh, yeah, how that movie got made was actually pretty interesting. Like, it's like some school kids in a class like wrote to the director, like, "Can you make this movie for us? We read the book on it." And he's like,
Like seventh
Okay, I'll
grade is
make a
when we
movie
read it.
on this." What?
Like seventh grade is when we read it, like here in the state
Yeah,
of
yeah, I
California.
know it's around that middle school level, so that was kind of
Mhm.
an interesting story. But yeah, Tom Cruise has been in movies it seems like forever now, but he's still going with it. And what impresses me so much about this actor is the stunt work. He just does so many of his own stunts. Like, how is this person still flying these jets at this age. I mean, it's outstanding. I don't know how he does it, but
He
that's what
did
he's
like
known for.
a talk show interview a couple days ago, and how many licenses do you have? And he just goes on. He has a long list of he can fly airplanes and different kinds, and he can do trucks and just a ton of different things.
It's amazing.
So
That's what
impressed.
keeps him so relevant to today because a lot of times today there's not too many big action stars left, right? It's a lot of
Mhm.
them don't sell the movie anymore. Now it's really reliant on the movie, not so much the actors. Where it used to be, decades ago, it's all about the actor. You hear the big actor name, that's what sells you on the movie first. But I still think Tom Cruise is one of those people, when I hear he's in a movie, it gets me
Yeah.
excited because I know he's doing stunt work in here. The action is going to be very impressive. So, oh my goodness, Tom Cruise for acting is definitely great. Just what he wants to take on and everything like that. It's amazing.
Mhm.
And so this leads us to our fourth question here. Why do we think they made this Top Gun sequel so many years later? Like, what? We're in 2022. I know the movie was supposed to come out in 2020, but got delayed with all the COVID
Uh-huh.
situation. But still, even if you think 2020, this movie came out in the 80s. What, like,
83, I think, 82,
yeah.
83.
So we're 30 years
30
later.
years.
30 years
Wow.
later. Like, oh my goodness, like, has any movie done it where it's like a 30 years direct sequel? Yeah, we've had reboots and remakes and like legacy side-off stories and spin-offs and things like that. But to do a full-on direct sequel 30 years later, I'm sure it's been done before, but it's pretty rare at least to say the very least on that. So why did they take so long to make this movie? I'm still thinking about Last American Girl. Do you know why they took so long for this
They
movie?
were waiting for Miles Teller to be born.
Good call on that. If that is the reason, I give it a pass on this one because Miles Teller is such a great actor. He's another actor that I get pretty excited about when I see him in movies. And I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about him in some upcoming questions. So maybe that's the reason, but it's like, you know what? Another good reason could be the technology now, the filmmaking
Uh-huh.
technology. Because if we were impressed in the 80s with what they were able to do with jets and the camera work and all that, I'm so excited now just to see, like, okay, so now we're 30 years later with all this new technology. You can get different angles, you can do things like this with the
Mhm.
cameras. Oh my goodness. Maybe that's why. Maybe it's like we want it to be like next level. Kind of like I hope Avatar ends up being. But what do you
Oh,
think,
yeah.
Last America Girl?
That's the part I'm the most nervous about because they did so well in filming them in the 80s, and this was before CGI and everything that kind of makes me dizzy in movies nowadays. So I'm a little stressed as to how they're going to do the scenes. Are they going to go all out and give us really long scenes with camera changes, or is it going to be the smooth transitions how it was in the original? Well, in the first, I don't know what we call these because this is a sequel, right?
Yeah, so this is the second
Hmm.
one. Yeah.
Hmm.
Um but yeah, I feel safe in saying that I think the camera work's gonna be good because the stories I've heard about this one, like they filmed like hours and hours of like extra footage and
Uh-huh.
there's no way. I heard like was it 800 hours of footage? I think I heard some outrageous number like that,
Dang.
like something outrageous where it
Hmm.
was so much hours of footage to try to get, everything perfect with the jet flying angles and things like that. To pare it down to a couple hour movie though, I'm gonna be impressed by that. Editors,
I
you
hope
did a
so.
good job on just that task. Like, yeah,
800
Tom Cruise
hours.
was like, yeah, here we go, enjoy all of this. You guys work on it now. But that's why I'm excited for it. So if this movie came out like, in 85, right? 86, right away, what
Earlier, like 82, 83.
yeah, but if the sequel came out like right
Oh,
after, you know what
oh,
I mean?
yeah,
A couple
yeah.
years later, a few years later, would I be excited about that sequel? I'm trying to put myself, you know, I wasn't even born that
Mhm.
by that time, but I'm thinking, would people have been excited about it as much? I don't think so. I think this is maybe a good scenario for this movie where the first one is so iconic, so original, and it didn't give a sequel to people that were big fans during that time. So
Yeah,
now you've had this legacy kind of build up 30 years later of now generations watching this, right? Could have been,
yep.
generations, right? With their
Oh, yeah,
family.
my parents were teenagers when they watched it the first time, and then we
That's
went to go see them
amazing.
together, and now
So,
it's us.
and are they going to see this one?
Oh, yeah, we're all going together.
There you go. So now it's transcended generations. That's amazing. So maybe
Mhm.
that was the whole gameplay of this time.
It
Yeah, let's
gives the
wait
same
30 years.
feels as, Star Wars
Oh
as how
yeah.
when they made it, but hopefully it's a better movie.
Yes, yes, yes.
But it's that,
I'm
taking your kids to go see it after.
Yes, I'm feeling good about this one though. So, well, and also why I think it probably got made now too is that yeah, a lot of the big studios are going back to the intellectual properties they have, right? I think a lot of them are going
Mhm.
through their catalog of movies, just flipping through like, hey, what have
Ooh,
we
we
done
own this one
before?
now.
Yeah, yeah. What did people like? What do we still own? What can we make? Everybody loves sequels these days, legacy sequels, whatever you call it. It's like, you know what? If you want to do good at the box office, you either be a superhero movie, a James Cameron movie, or a legacy sequel. That's your options at the box office if you want to make money these days. So a
Hmm.
part of me thinks it might be the studio there thinking, oh, okay, we had Top Gun. Why not? Hey, let's give Cruise a call and get this thing made. Cruise was like, yeah, I get to fly jets again. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Well, that's what my guess anyway is. But this gets us to our fifth question here. What did we think of all the trailers so far for this movie? Oh my goodness. Well, we've had these trailers for a long time, right?
Long time.
Our
Yeah.
first trailer was what, 2020? And then we
Yeah.
got some more recent trailers, but they've been outstanding. Even just that first trailer, when you see the jets take off and they're flying, you're like, "Oh my goodness, like I want to be in this jet right now." I'm terrified of jets and heights and all those things, but I'm like I just like for a moment to feel like that force they're feeling as a pilot. I mean, that just looks so amazing. And then they got a good soundtrack and score again. To me, it was just getting me super excited. Last American Girl, how have you felt about the trailer so far?
Like you said, the first kind of teasers trailers was back in 2020, and I'm thinking that when my movie theater shut down because of COVID, that was the main poster that they had, the main movie poster. So it's been a long anticipation, and they give you a little bit here, a little bit there, but uh overall the trailers, like you said, and I hope that's how the movie ends up being. They give you just the right amount. There's
Yeah.
nothing extra, nothing weird or
It's been a
anything.
long highway to the danger
Mhm.
zone, you could say, and hopefully it pays off. But these trailers have just been getting me excited because they've been giving us like a little bit in the trailer. Like they
The
haven't been,
plot.
yeah, they haven't been seeming to give us like
Mhm.
tons of plot details away. Like we get little bits here and there. Like we know certain things that will be there. Like in the latest trailer they just did, the newer one,
Mhm.
they have Iceman, like a picture of him, Val Kilmer there. I'm so glad they were able to get Val Kilmer into this movie because I
Mhm.
was worried, especially after seeing the Val documentary on Hulu, seeing where Val Kilmer is now and can't really act unfortunately anymore
Mhm.
due to certain physical limitations. I'm glad they were able to put that little cameo reference in the movie to
Yeah.
tie Ice back in here. So I was super hyped they did that. So they're at least giving us some good fan service, but it seems like it ties into the plot as well. So it's not just fan service for fan service, goes along with the
Yeah.
story. So I appreciate that. And then you also get Miles Teller as Goose's kid, and he has like the best lines in this. The lines that just make you like, oh, did you just
Ooh.
say that? Like, well, how did the line go again? He was like, my father trusted you. I'm not gonna make the same mistake.
Mhm.
I was like, no, he didn't just say that. I'm like, oh, that gave me the feels right there. I'm like, if this trailer can do that, what are they
Mhm.
saving for the movie? You know what I
I
mean?
know. And that's and I love that scene because it's so interesting because the original, well, the first part, Tom Cruise's character Maverick is struggling with the death of his father as well, and that's why he's like so reckless. So this time it's a direct cause to uh Goose's kid, to Miles Teller over here. So even though that we were talking about how beautiful that scene with Meg Ryan is and how it feels like he should have been a kind of a part of the family afterwards, it there's still that resentment to it, and I'm so excited to see how they're going to play that.
Oh yeah, that dynamic back and forth. I can't wait for like that banter they're gonna have. I know there's gonna be some
There's
powerful
like a
scenes.
fight or something.
I know, like, I mean,
Punches were thrown.
like how can he look at like Maverick, without feeling a certain way? Oh, but like you said, there was also that bond between them as well, right? I mean, like the kid was there in the bar or whatever on the
Yeah, the
piano,
piano
like
stand.
so, like he
Mhm,
knows Maverick, right? He's part of the like extended family. But then that tragedy happens, and it's like, oh my goodness. Oh,
mhm.
I'm so excited to see that. And then also just to see Maverick back again and in this way, because the trailer also was saying like, hey, why are you still here? Like, you're just a captain, right? You can't get a
Mhm.
promotion, right? But you're still stuck in this kind of same mode because they have to explain that in the movie, right? how
Yeah, and
how is he
also
still
because the whole plot of the first one was that only the whoever won the competition would be invited back as an instructor, and he didn't win. Mm.
Yes. But at the end, I know he said in that first movie he wanted to be an instructor, right?
Mhm.
So he does mention that. So I'm gonna be interested to see like why didn't he ever want to go to a higher position, right? Like, why didn't he want to
Yeah.
be an admiral or things like
Was
or
he
did
always
they
afraid or
or is he always just making too
mm,
many risky decisions that like
that
puts
they're
other
not
people in
allowed?
dangerous situations? And so they're like, yeah,
Mhm.
you're a good fighter pilot here, but we can't let you be in charge of too many people at a time. Yeah, so that I'm going to be excited to see how they explain that, right? Like why hasn't he retired yet? Like what he's been doing this what, 30 plus
For 30
years
years.
now. Like, hey, that's a long time in the military. That's putting in some time. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I'm gonna be interested to see how it explains it. But what I love about these trailers is it gives us the flavor, right? Gives us the tone, it gives us a taste of the movie, but it didn't give too much away. And I feel like a lot of movies, a lot of trailers now, they give like too much away. Like Doctor
Yeah,
Strange
like
2
Doctor Strange,
gave us tons away,
everything.
right? This, I don't feel like we've gotten too much yet. So that's
Mhm.
why I'm still excited. So I think the trailers did a good job. So you were happy with the trailers overall?
Yeah, I
Okay,
like them.
perfect. And so this gets us to our sixth question here. What are we looking forward to see in this movie? And this is perfect, just leading off from what we were talking about with the trailers. I'm just excited to see once again Tom Cruise back doing this amazing stunt work. I know we already talked about it, but I'm so excited to see once again the jet fighter sequences and how did they make it better than the first one with all the new technology because I want them to take it up a notch, right? You made us wait 30 years here. We better have something to show for it, right? So I'm excited to see that. But hearing that Tom Cruise did all his stunts in here with all the jets and everything, that gets me excited to see all that aerial combat stuff. So hyped for that. Seeing Miles Teller, oh my goodness, right? As Goose to see that storyline, like we mentioned, how does that play out? Seeing if they tie in Ice even more into the movie rather than just that small cameo. Do they keep bringing up his name? Is Cruz Maverick somebody? Is he somebody that keeps like looking up the Ice and maybe they've had conversations in the past and things like that they bring up? That would be awesome as well. Excited to see the score for this movie, the soundtrack, because that's what Top Gun's known for. So Hopefully they add in some new like pump up songs for this one. Yeah, I want to see the classic songs, of course. Of course, give us that
Oh,
nostalgia.
definitely want them to bring those in again.
Yeah, yeah, because you have to, because that's what a Top Gun movie is, these outrageous songs. But I hope they add some new ones in too to kind of keep it fresh. So I don't want them to just repeat the first one again in a modern age with a new, I don't want it to be like the same kind of story. I hope they don't do that. I hope it's a movie that pays respect to the original, but still a continuation and still an original story though, that gives us something different, kind of like how a Ghostbusters Afterlife was.
Mhm.
That was a great movie,
That was
right?
great.
It paid respect to the originals, right? Gave us that nostalgia, fan service, all that great stuff, but then it gave us new characters and a new story, even though it was
Mhm.
still all connected. So I hope it goes that way. What do you think, Last American Girl? What are you expecting out of this movie?
I expect the same pace, a little bit of action, a little bit of romance, a little bit of character building, that kind of flow. And the trailers, as we were saying, gave us kind of the idea of that's what they're heading with. The romantic aspect, I'm not entirely sure how that's going to be going because they didn't ask the original actress to return, but we were talking about it earlier, and you mentioned that
Yeah,
one of
Jennifer
your favorite
Connelly, yes.
actresses is
Yeah,
going
and
to
we're
be
gonna
taking
we're gonna
over.
talk about that in the next
Ah,
so that lead us to
ah.
the next
So
question.
that's exciting to look forward to. I hope, like I said, I hope they don't mess up the flight scenes and give us too many cuts. But I want to once again go to the movies and be impressed with how they film this movie, and of course Tom Cruise and his stunts, and it's all so fun when he's around.
And that's a good point you brought up about looking forward to seeing this in the movie theater. Like, you
Mhm.
gotta see this one in the movie theater. I mean, even just what we've seen in a trailer, seeing that on a big screen with the big sound speakers and just that, oh, that surround sound goodness. I'm excited to see this movie. I want to see this on a premium screen. I want to go to a Screen X at Regal and see the
Wow.
270-degree immersion, just feeling like I'm in the. Have you
Ooh.
ever been to a
I think
Screen
I have
X?
not. Do they do
Oh,
that?
it's the best. It's my favorite viewing
Regal.
experience. It's not at every Regal though.
Mhm.
It's only certain Regals. It's usually like the bigger Regals, like the really premium, like 20 plus screen Regals. So I know I have to drive a little farther to get to one myself, but it's
Wow.
awesome. I did that for like a Spider-Man No Way Home, and I think I did it for Uncharted as well, I want to say, but it's
Uncharted
cool. It
is
like makes you feel like you're more part of the movie. And I'm excited for this movie in particular because I want to feel like I'm flying with Maverick, like I'm in the jet, like I'm in the clouds. So hopefully that
Mhm.
experience goes good. So I am excited to see that. But this leads us perfectly into our seventh question here. And what do we think of the cast for this movie? I know we've mentioned some of them, but going off that last point, Last American Girl, you brought up, you said we got a new like love interest, I guess,
Mhm.
with Jennifer Connelly. Now, Jennifer Connelly, I've always been a big fan of her. She was a really popular actress, definitely in the 80s. I remember her from Career Opportunities. She's been in Rocketeer, Labyrinth, a whole bunch of different movies. Were you saying, Last American Girl, that you knew much about this actress or not too
I
much?
don't know. I don't know much about her. Um, she's brand new to me. I
Yes.
haven't seen any of those movies, but
And
oh,
she,
what?
yeah, she's brand new,
Mhm.
and so she's a popular actress, so like I mentioned, but we were asking a little bit before we started this show,
Mm.
why did we choose a new actress? We're still kind of curious about that, right?
I don't know.
Yeah,
If anyone
because
knows, let us know.
yeah, definitely let us know in the comments if you know why they went with a different actress, because I really did like the actress in the first one. I
Yeah.
think her last name is Mitchell, something like that. I thought
Mhm.
she was a good love interest for Maverick. Like, she was what, the flight instructor, and
Yeah.
so they have like kind of that
Analyst
relationship.
and
You're like, ooh, that's a little bit of a naughty relationship there.
scandalous here.
Yeah, a little scandalous a relationship there, but the movie makes it work, of course, with the music they put
Mhm.
in there. And
Also
So
the timing of it, it was so slow paced and refreshing too, that they didn't just jump into this like so many movies nowadays. I think that's also why I like it.
yes, yeah, just yeah, how they build up to it. It fit perfectly with the story. So that is probably one of the cautions I do have for this movie is I wonder if it's going to be like another straight up just relationship romance again, if that's her
Mhm.
role in it. And I'm going to be curious to see how it plays out because that's the one little area I'm like, I don't know. New cast member here, new romance. You're gonna have to win me over with this one. So hopefully
Mhm.
that cast choice turns out great. But we got Tom Cruise back as Maverick. Of course, you can't have this movie without him. Super excited. He's doing all these stunt work. So really happy with him being back. Of course, you need him for a Top Gun movie. Next, once again, we already mentioned we got the Val Kilmer cameo. We saw that, got the picture of him, so that's nice. They were able to tie him back into the movie. But Miles Teller is someone I'm super hyped for. Goose's kid. What a great idea to bring Miles Teller into this movie. I've always liked Miles Teller from like movies like Whiplash. And then he was in that boxing movie, Bleed for This. I really liked him in. Last American Girl. What are some other movies you remember Miles Teller from?
Fantastic Four,
Yes,
the
the
reboot
new one.
there.
Yeah.
Mhm. And he's in a couple of comedies from what I recall. But yeah, I like his acting style, and it's I don't think I've seen him in such a serious role before, so that's something that I'm excited for. And we were also talking about Glenn Powell. Glenn Powell. You were saying at the beginning that these are more the newbies and the pilots, but I recognize him from Scream Queens, the TV show, and he did a really good job in that show. And he also plays Glenn in Hidden Figures,
Hmm.
the movie about the female team of
Mathematician.
mathematicians.
Yes,
Mathematicians.
that work with NASA. I actually just
Mhm.
watched that one again recently. Actually, a really good movie.
Yeah, I love that movie. Yeah, and he does a great job in that one too. So I think he has it's did you watch that show on Disney Plus about also the astronaut team? I think it's called like The Best Man or
No, I
something.
have not seen that one.
But the one who also plays Glenn in that movie, his actor was previously on the TV show Greek, which is also kind of that in that same uh, sorority fraternity line, and that Glenn Powell's Scream Queens was from. So that's a really interesting parallel to me. I'm excited for Glenn Powell. I'm also
Yeah.
in my NASA
NASA,
season
yes. Yeah,
star.
I'm so excited. Yeah, I'm excited for the classic cast. Hope they tie in well with these new cast members as well. But what we've seen so far, it looks like they're gonna have a good combination there. So I'm so excited for this one. Now getting into our question 8 here, we have what are our expectations for this movie in comparison to the first. So I've already mentioned here that I really want this movie to take it up another notch, right? Show us what have you been able to do now waiting this 30-year time limit. I want to see technology increase. I want to see a little bit more epicness to it, a little bit more action, more stunt work, more jets flying, just more of that, but also give us some good feels to this movie. Put in some of those random sequences in there. Give us another volleyball scene or something similar to that, right? So we have those little funny, like little cheesy moments in there that remind us of the 80s movie, but it's something different. So it's not a full on repeat of the past movie. You're continuing the story forward, but you're paying respects to the past movie. And do I need this to be as good as the first movie? I don't need it to be as good as the first one because that is high expectations. I want to kind of limit my expectations a little bit on this one, especially after being, having some expectations for Doctor Strange 2. I'm going to limit myself a little bit more on this, but I want it to be a good movie, a good, solid movie where I can be like, hey, the 30-year wait, it was still worth it, still an enjoyable sequel, and to kind of be able to marathon those two movies back together. Yes, that's what I'm expecting out of it, and I'm expecting that, yes, it takes us to new heights, I guess you could say, in a way, with of course being in reasonable expectations. Last American Girl, what are you expecting out of this one?
First of all, I just noticed that we keep saying, "Oh, the 30-year wait was so long," and neither of us are even 30 yet.
I know, right? This movie came out before we were alive, before we existed on this planet. But that's how good that first movie was. We went back, it wasn't in our time, and it was still a lot of fun, and it's still such a good movie. But it's a movie that it doesn't feel like it was made so long ago. It
No.
holds up to today,
And
definitely.
that's what my expectation is. Like I said, I don't want a remake of the first one, and I don't want something to be trying too hard to be just like it. I want a continuation. I want a new story. I want the like I said the same feels with a little bit of comedy here, a little bit of friendship and building, and all of that, but also with I want to see something cool. I think that's what it comes down to. I I want to see some epic flight scenes and some punches between the new pilots and that kind of something that I will appreciate in the movie theater and will want to revisit, like something that I can add to my watch of Top Gun and then Top Gun Maverick. Like I'll start watching both of them.
Yes, yeah, that is so important that this movie does not let us down because I
Mhm.
want it to be able to be watched back but to back, right?
Hmm.
Not like where it's now with Star Wars, where I'm like every time I think about Star Wars, I'm like, do I want to go back and rewatch Star Wars? Because if I do, I feel like I'm obligated to marathon it. But if we end up
Mhm.
on Rise of Skywalker, I'd be very sad by the end of all that. So, so
Oh,
I hope it doesn't
I like
happen.
Rise of
You
Skywalker.
did? Oh, I'm so glad you like it. That's the great thing about the subjectivity of movies. So yes, yes, I'm so glad you enjoyed it. Oh, oh, you're
A
dedicated
little bit.
there. Oh, you
Yeah.
got the poster and everything. Oh, okay. Well, hey, I will say that if this movie is better than Rise of Skywalker for me, I will be happy with it. But like you were mentioning, having that action packed kind of sequences, right? Those flight sequences, something where I say, hey, you know what? I went to the movie theater, I brought all these people with me, and we had a great shared experience with seeing all this spectacle on the big screen. It sounded amazing hearing these jet
Mhm.
engines. If it can give me that feel of like, oh, this was a movie theater worthy experience, then I'm going to be so hyped. Because a lot of times movies will come out and you're like, you know what? That wasn't the best. I could have maybe caught that on streaming later or for a rental later. It really wasn't movie level quality. So I'm hoping this one really is like, oh no, we went all out for this to be on the big screen. And I've heard, Tom Cruise mention and things before, like, hey, no, Tom Cruise wants this movie on the big screen. This is not going straight to streaming. No, we're gonna get the big screen experience. This is what this movie was made for. And so
Like
when
the
I hear,
delay with James Bond. The delay with James
yes,
Bond, that was
but that movie was so good to see on the big screen,
yeah.
right? Oh, No Time to Die. Such a good movie. I reviewed that one as well. Absolutely, of course. That was such a good movie. So, yeah, getting that big theatrical experience first. And then if later down the road, goes to streaming, that's totally fine. But give us that theater experience. So I'm just hoping, like you said, a fun time basically, right? Have those
Mhm.
fun moments in the movie to say, you know what, this was an easy watching movie, just a movie you can kick back with, eat some popcorn, have a large soda there and just have a good time.
And that's
That's
what's
what
so
I'm
great
hoping.
about the first one, how, like you said, it's something you can play in the background. The plot is easy, it moves along. There's nothing too complicated about it, and, like, it's relatable. It's
Yeah,
nice.
it doesn't hurt your brain. Like, you don't have to think
Mhm.
about it too much, right? I know like some
Like, oh, the
psychological thrillers
multiverse.
out there. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like multiverse going on. How does this connect to everything? Uh, that's yeah. I'm just hoping for an easy watching movie like this, and I think this movie is gonna deliver that. And that's what I really liked about the '80s movies because I'm a big
Mhm.
fan of the '80s decade. To me, that's like one of my favorite decades of movies because the movies were so easy watching. You just put it
Yeah.
in there, you have a fun time, whether you get some awesome action moments or some fun comedic moments. But they were just relatable characters and it was very easy watching. Um, it wasn't trying to like outsmart the audience in any way. It was just like, hey, here's a fun story for you to enjoy. So that's what the first movie did so good. So I hope we get a similar experience. Like you said, the same kind of tone, the same kind of feel to it, but of course, a new story. So it isn't, just a repeat. It is something different, but it's still in that same continuity of tone, you could say. So
Mhm.
that's my expectations in terms of do I think it's going to be a 10 out of 10, right? Because you were saying Last American Girl, you like that first one so much, it's
10
a
out of
10 out of 10 for
10.
you. Do I think it's going to get out of a 10 out of 10? I'm like, oh, I'm so cautious because if it does that, it could be my favorite movie of the year. I mean, right now, my favorite movie is Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. That's an amazing movie. If you haven't seen it, see that movie like 3 times today. It
What
is
is it?
amazing. Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. It's an A24 movie. Not many people have heard
No.
of it unless you've been like looking up reviews on it. I, of course, reviewed the movie. That's why you need to watch my reviews, everybody. But it's the best movie of the year by far. Nothing's even close to it.
Okay,
That's
I'll
how
give it a
good.
watch. That's exciting. Where do you watch it?
Oh, you can watch it at any movie theater.
Oh, it's in
It's
theaters.
still in the
Okay,
movie
cool.
theater. It's
I'll
been
go see it.
doing so good. It's been out for weeks now and it's still making some money. It's the A24 film that's made the most amount of money.
Mhm.
So if Top Gun Maverick can get to that level, even if Top Gun Maverick gets second place for me, because it's a high chance of second place, because I don't have a strong second place right now for the year. Like when I think of other movies I've seen this year, I'm like, like because Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, I had a good time with it,
Mhm.
but I wasn't like, oh, this is amazing,
A standalone movie.
yeah, I'm like, it's good. It's good. MCU movies are usually good. Like it's hard to do a bad. They have done not so good MCU movies, but now they kind of got into the rhythm where it's at least pretty standard, consistent quality. So you're either gonna get pretty good or sometimes you get amazing, right? And we always hope for
Mhm.
the amazing level. So I don't really have a second place movie right now where I can say, oh yeah, like a really good one. So Top Gun Maverick, I think could get to my second spot, or if it can get to my number one, oh, I'm gonna be so impressed with it. So I'm expecting. Am
Mhm.
I expecting 10 out of 10? No, because for me that's hard to do. That usually like if I get a 10 out of 10 type of movie, even though I don't give number scores myself, that would usually make it into like my top 100 list of all times movies, right? Or
Mhm.
like my top 30, right? It usually is very difficult to do that because I see like hundreds of movies a year. So to get into that level, sometimes I'll go years without getting into that level. So it's a possibility for a movie to do that. It's very rare. So do I think it's going to be around that level? I don't think so. I'm gonna be a little cautious on it. I will still be optimistic though. I will say I'll give a 9 out of 10 prediction, not 10 out of 10 because that's super hype. I'll
Yeah.
go, 9 out of 10. What do you think, Last
I
American
think I'll
Girl?
go 8 out of 10. I'll lower my expectations a little, but I'm still expecting something great and rewatchable.
See, you were too hyped for a Doctor Strange,
I
weren't you?
know.
See, now you're more cautious now. Now you're like,
Uh,
see, for me, I'm glad I said Doctor Strange like an 8 out of 10 because
uh,
now I feel like I can go a little bit higher than that. I'm like, I could go, you know what? I think I will have a better time with Top Gun
mhm,
Maverick over Doctor Strange. I'm hoping. And if it can do that, that's great because everybody knows superhero genre, like that's my favorite genre. I think that's like your go-to genre as well,
yeah.
right?
Yeah,
So
Marvel.
yeah, so if another movie can get to that level or even better than that, then hey, that's an accomplishment in itself. So
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have pretty decent high expectations. You're 8 out of 10. I'm like hoping for a 9 out of 10. So this would probably end up in being probably both are one of our favorite movies of the year, right? It could definitely easily make a top 5 by the end of the year or top 10, something like that. So
Yeah, I would love for that.
yeah, so I hope it gets on that level. All right, so this leads us to our ninth question here, talking about um, expectations, I guess, other people's expectations, right? And have they been met
Ah,
with? What do
yeah.
we think of the high Rotten Tomato score and critic response so far? So last time I checked, I think the Rotten Tomato score was at 97%. Somebody out there correct me if I'm wrong. If it's changed now, definitely leave it in the comments below, but a high 90 something percent, like 97% for Rotten Tomatoes, that's really outstanding. Most movies don't get to that level. Even you talk about a lot of the best MCU movies, they're not
Mhm.
even that high up there. So to see a critic response for a movie that's also a sequel too, keep in
Mhm.
mind a lot of critics don't love sequels, right? There are the few exceptions, right? Like Toy Story movies, they have
Uh,
really high scores across the board, right? Very, very high
mhm.
scores. But a lot of times sequels don't get a very high score. Now we've had some bright exceptions recently, like with Scream, that got to its fifth movie and that got pretty decently high, more than I expected, right?
Mhm.
But this movie, 97%, to me,
Jeez.
that's amazing, right? Like, how often
Right.
do you see that?
Question, do you know how much, how high the first one is? That?
Okay, so last time I heard somebody talk about it, it was low. It was, I think it was under
Really?
50% or around 50%, which is shocking,
Mhm.
right? That's
Yeah.
super shocking. But that just shows how amazing this movie has the potential to be. If that movie, and you know what? I think why it got such a low percent, that original one, is because once again, it broke all the filmmaking rules. It was so all over
Mhm.
the place. The tone was so different. You'd get those random sequences in there. So a critic probably watching the volleyball scene was like, wait, what is going on here? I thought we were in a jet fighting movie. Then you get the romance in there. Like, what? We're in a romance movie, no longer in a military movie here, right? What's going on with this? And even like I said, just with the score, like you get a good, powerful
Specifically.
anthem, and then you just start going into the rock and roll highway to the danger zone. You're just like, wait, what am I watching now? What is happening? So the Rotten Tomato critic score for the first one was lower than I expected. Now, I'm not sure of the audience score on that one. I'll have to go back and check. Hopefully the audience score, I'm sure, is probably higher than that. But for this, it looks like they're getting a good critic score and a good audience score. I mean, anything ever above a 90% to me is like
It's
amazing.
good.
But when you're getting close to even getting to 100%, like within a few percent off, which I'm sure it will change and it'll adjust as they get more reviews in there. It might fall, mid 90s or maybe even lower 90s, but still at that point,
Mhm.
that is fantastic. People are saying they love this movie. Like every review I've already seen that has gotten access to these movies, the early screeners. I'm not at that level yet. Studios out there, start sending me some screeners, okay? I review these movies for you. Uh, have said it's been
Putting it out there.
amazing. Yeah, but have
Yeah.
have said this movie's been amazing. Even people that aren't like a hardcore Top Gun fan have really liked this movie. So, Last American Girl, what are you thinking of this Rotten Tomato score? Just the review so far. How do you feel about this?
I think that's really cool that it has, such a high rating, and what you're saying with making it, with, people who haven't so much seen the first ones, they're still enjoying it, which makes it a high expectation here, as opposed to, Doctor Strange, how Doctor Strange 2 wasn't a standalone movie, but this one might be, and that's something that I can look forward to. Um, I usually don't take, critic reviews, kind of, I take them with a grain of salt because, as you said, everyone's opinion is different,
That's
and
true. And of course, we all know
mm.
the best reviews out there come from Mega Mike the Movie Man. That's really
Yeah,
only where you need to go. So
just
that's
to get
true.
a
I will
true
agree.
review. Yeah. So, so I mean, I usually like the movies I end up liking are just so completely random. Like I said, I like The Rise of Skywalker, even though that did terrible with with Rotten Tomatoes. But there's also some movies that have gotten really high Rotten Tomato scores, but I'm not really a fan of. So
I'm glad you
we'll have to
mentioned that.
see.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that point for a few reasons here. First reason, of course, I'll plug my channel in here and say, hey, what I do as a reviewer is something really unique is that I don't
Hmm.
give scores. So people
No.
look at my reviews. I have a no score giving policy. I will not do. I will not give a score on an official review of a movie. But for that reason you mentioned, everybody likes something different, right? Somebody
Hmm.
may love a movie, another person could hate that same movie, or vice versa. Some people may not like a movie, some people might love the movie. So when I do my reviews, I give a recommendation based on your taste, your preferences. I say, hey, if you like this kind of genre, you like this style of movie, you like this tone of movie, I think you will like it, even though maybe other people won't like it. And I'll say the same thing. Um, with those kinds of recommendations, I really try to tailor it to what people are going to like themselves personally, you know, because I feel
Hmm.
like if I give a score, it can mean anything, right? Like, hey, what's a 10 out of
Yeah.
10 to me? Maybe like a 5 out of 10 to you, you know, like, so the score has really no meaning. But I think my recommendations do a pretty good job of going based off of your personal preference for movies. So, got to plug in the channel right there, of course.
Yeah, and how you say the good and the bad, and I
Oh, yeah.
really like that about your channel, which is what you want to know looking when going to a movie.
Yes, and that's a good point. I'm glad you brought that point up again. I'm gonna plug in my channel again right here because you mentioned because some reviews, what they'll
Mhm.
do, and I don't think everybody does this, but I'm sure there are some reviewers out there that will be like, oh, let me see, what do other people think of this movie here? You know, do people love this movie? Let me try to keep my review in line with what everybody thinks, you know? Me, I do not care what anybody thinks. Like, I will tell you straight up, hey, this is how I feel about the movie. This is what I think's good in the movie. This is what I think's bad in the movie. But then also, I'll recommend what I think you will like based on just the movie alone. Because there might be a movie I like, but I know, hey, maybe 9 out of 10 people won't like this movie. So I'll tell people straight up, hey, it was for me. It's probably not going to be for you because of these reasons. So I will tell people that, like, people were surprised when they see my Rocky ranking video. I put Rocky 1, the one everybody loves, at the bottom. Yes,
Oh.
and everybody's like, what? You know, everybody loves that. The people say it's a cinematic masterpiece, Oscar winner. Absolutely, that's great, but I gotta be true to myself and I gotta tell you my
Mhm,
opinion. But what's great is I tell you why, right? I tell you why.
mhm.
I tell you what I thought was good out of it. I tell you what was bad out of it. And then I give that recommendation. So thanks for letting me plug my channel in there. But now going back to the question, of
Back
course,
to back to
I know.
business.
Yes, of course, of course. But now going back to the question there, I liked how you also mentioned that, hey, even though the critic score is high and that might be getting people like super hyped up for it could still be a movie not for me, right? Or a movie not for you. So even though maybe all the critics love it, is it going to be a movie that we will personally like? It could turn out to be not so, right? It could be like everybody loved this movie, but I was the one person that didn't, right? That's the great subjectivity of film. Now, what I do like about the Rotten Tomato score, though, is, and I think this is why Rotten Tomatoes is so powerful, and a lot of
Mhm,
people don't know like fully how Rotten Tomatoes work. So I'll kind of sum it up here just in case people were wondering about it. Basically, what when it says it has a certain percent of a score, that's not people saying, oh, I'm giving it a 9 out of 10. No, a lot of people
mhm,
get that confused and think, oh, everybody gave it like a 9 out of 10, right, to get to a 90 something percent. No, no, no. Basically, what it means is just an aggregated score of, did people give it a thumbs up? So if
mhm,
97% of people gave it a thumbs up rather than a thumbs down, then
mhm,
okay, it's saying in general, most people like it. But it could be some people like it at a 6 out of 10. There might be some people that like it at a 10 out of 10, right?
Mhm.
So that's a wide range in there. So that's why you may be like, you may get out of the movie and be like, hey, it was a 6 out of 10 movie. It didn't get up to my
I
friends,
would
10 out of 10 thoughts, right?
be in the 3% of.
Oh yeah, or you're in the 3% rotten, you threw a rotten tomato at it, you're in the 3% there, which could happen as well. But what I do
Mhm.
like Rotten Tomatoes for is that general, hey, do most
Yes or
people in
no?
general
Yay
like
or
it?
nay?
Yeah, do you give it a yes? Do you give it a no? Because what that tells me, it doesn't guarantee I'll like it. I might fall in the 3%, right? Could happen. But it also says I have a higher chance of liking it, or at least I have a higher chance of it being at least pretty decent. Like if it's a high percent, usually very rare have I ever been like, oh, such a high percent, and I go into the movie and I'm like, oh, this was garbage. This was the worst thing I've ever seen in my eyes. I gotta scoop them out now. Like, no, that never happens to me. So usually, like if it has a high score, I'll probably at least like it to maybe I'll really like it. I wanted to get it to that level, but yeah, I'm so glad we talked about those scores and the differences and what they can mean. It doesn't guarantee you're gonna like this movie out there. Um, like there's movies I love that I find out people don't like, and I'm always like, hey, that's the subjectivity of movies, right? that's
That's
that's a
art.
great that's the art form. Yes, everybody looks at art differently. And so this gets to our 10th question here, our most important question. How do we think this movie is going to do at the box office? Both talking about domestically, opening weekend, and then larger scale, maybe globally. So I
Mhm.
think domestically, now I know we always talk really big high numbers on here, but that's because we've been talking about like superhero movies and Marvel movies, and they have the potential to get to those really high amounts. And everybody thinks, oh, it's easy to make 100 million opening weekend, right? Every movie can make $1 billion easily. No, that is not the case. It is so difficult to get into the $1 billion club.
For anything.
Filmmakers would
Yeah.
love if their movie got into the $1 billion club, but realistically, it's not going to happen for most of them. It just won't,
Mhm.
right? So now trying to be realistically here, where do we think this gets domestically opening weekend? I'm going to give a conservative estimate here. Now, I want to say I feel confident in this movie can make at least 60 million opening weekend, which would, I think that would be the highest opening for a Tom Cruise movie. Correct me if I'm wrong,
Ooh.
but I think that would be. And so I would say anywhere 60 million, but I could see it getting even to maybe as high as 80 million. If it got 100 million, oh my goodness, that'd be fantastic. I would not go higher than
Mhm.
100 million. No way. I would not do that. But I would go around anywhere 60 to 100 million. Maybe if I'm being optimistic, I would say let's push for the 80 million. I'd feel really good at that point. But there's some things that this movie has going for it. Once again, we got Tom Cruise, like one of the last well-known action stars, still acting today, does all this stunt work. I think that's going to be a draw to get people into the movie theater.
Mhm.
Next, we got this a sequel, right? It's a sequel movie, so you're following up on a really popular Top Gun movie, so you have that too. So I think those two things, along with it, oh, we can't forget, hey, what time is it? Memorial Day weekend, right?
Ah.
We got a longer weekend. More people usually go out, to the movies during like holidays and weekends. Yeah, some people are probably going to the beach. I get it. But there's also, I'm sure, some people going to the movie theater as well. So I think those are
Yep.
some things the movie has going for it. Last American Girl, what do you think? Do you think like these are enough positives to get people out to the theater? Can you think of any other pros or positives to get people out?
Yeah, what you were saying with the immersive theaters, do they get a bigger cut out of the larger
Yeah, so
theaters?
so that's the point of the immersive theaters. Like, that's why they do like 3D movies, they
Mhm.
do the IMAX showings, they do the 4DX, right? Hey, that would be a kind of fun experience. Like you're shaking in your seat, like while the movie's going, like
Yeah.
you have air sprayed on you or like mist and stuff. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I've never
I
have.
may want to do that. I don't know. They're all the one thing I don't like about the 4DX though. I tried it one time, and when they do the action scenes, the seat like punches you in the back, so it kind of is painful. Like I saw the Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard movie, like the sequel one,
Mhm.
and I was like getting beat up the whole time with the chair in the back. So I'm like,
Oh, that's
I don't
great.
like it for that. But when it moves, it's kind of fun. But yeah, so the higher ticket
Mhm.
prices will get it some more money. And I think people will actually go for the higher ticket prices, like especially like an IMAX theater. I
Oh,
think
yeah.
some people might go to that for the speakers alone, right? To hear the jet
Mhm.
engines. That's what I'm thinking, possibly.
Yeah, and then this is something that I would definitely want to fork out the extra amount to see it in a larger theater. Yeah, I've never been interested in doing
The 4DX,
the
yeah.
4DX until now. Like this is something that I might want to try that for.
Yeah, and
So,
that's the thing. Like, I want this movie to be a very immersive experience movie. And I think
mhm,
that will get more people out to the theater because I think people now we're getting out of the COVID era, right? Like there are still some people that are cautious. There are still some people, certain health reasons, they still won't go to the theaters. Understandable. But I think
mhm,
more people are starting to go out a little bit more. More people are wanting to get out of the house. People are starting to remember again, hey, what does it feel like to go to the movie theaters, right? People had a good experience with No Way Home, right? That was an event level movie. A lot of people still went to Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. That's probably going to join the $1 billion club. So people are going back out to the movies. So it just depends. Is this the movie people want to go back out to? That's the
mhm.
question there. And even though it's not a superhero movie, right? Not a Marvel movie. It's not a DC movie, right? So it doesn't have
It's a
that.
very specific genre with also like the military based actiony. So it kind of the movie itself has a very small genre.
Yeah, it's more, yeah, more of a
Mhm.
niche market, I guess you could
Mhm.
say. Yeah, that's right. A military movie. And I know there's some people that are just not into any military movie. Like that's
Yeah,
not their genre. They don't, I like the genre. Some people
I
don't,
love it.
right? So
Mhm.
there could be people that won't go to it for that. But I'm hoping more people will give this one a chance because, well, you got Tom Cruise in there. So people might be like, oh, I just want to see Tom Cruise do these crazy stunts. I don't care what movie it is. Um,
That's how
Also,
I've ended up in a lot of bad Tom Cruise movies.
it happens. It happens. We fall for it. And then, well, this movie is also a sequel, though. So it
Mhm.
has the name recognition. So we still got Top Gun, right? Top Gun Maverick. So I think that's going to be a benefit to it. Uh, we got Memorial Day weekend. So if you're going to do a military movie, not a bad weekend to put it on, a Memorial weekend. So that's
Mhm.
actually pretty smart thinking there. Hey, it's summertime too, right? Just in general, it's summertime.
Summer.
Yeah, we're in summer, so it's a big blockbuster movie. Usually more people will go out, right, with their families in summer to the movies. So I think those are some things that are going for it, which is good. But like negatives, like we mentioned, right? A very specific genre of movie, military, right? Also,
Mhm.
because this movie is a sequel that's coming out so late, right? 30 years later, even though that could be a positive, because if you have parents that really like it, they'll take the kids and everything. That can be a benefit, but it could also be a negative where the newer generation, if they didn't have parents that like play this movie at all, they may be like, oh, it's a sequel, but I never seen the first one, or I wasn't born during that one, so I just never caught up on it. It could also be that way where it's like, oh, well, I don't want to give the sequel a chance because I've never seen the original. But I'm
Mhm.
hoping that's kind of negated a little bit by some people saying, hey, let me see it stream on Netflix real quick. I'm caught up
Yeah.
now. Now I'll go and see it. It makes it a little bit easier for them. So I can see it back and forth. That's why I don't want to go too high on it. Like I know this isn't a superhero movie, right? This isn't going to go super high. But I'm trying to think like to compare it to Morbius, because I think Morbius
Mhm.
made like 40 million. But that was a superhero movie that a lot of people didn't like, right? Like I
Yeah.
had fun with it, right? I think you had fun with that one
Yeah, I
too.
like Morbius.
So a lot of people didn't like that one though, right? Low critic score, things like that. And that still made 40 million, right?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
that was for a character that wasn't really well known, right? Morbius, not a well known character. Here we have Maverick, and Maverick is a more known character now. So can this push up to that level? That's why I'm saying, like, I think 60 million is that area. I think at least we'll get the 60 million, but I would be optimistic and being like, hey, let's push for the long weekend. Let's get to 80 million. But if the movie's good, and this is key, it will have some
It'll
legs
have
and it
more.
will do well weekend after weekend. It could end up doing, I could see this movie by the end of its theatrical run going
Mm-hmm.
maybe 500 million, 500
Ooh.
million plus, like 600 million. I mean, hey, if
Mhm.
Fast and the Furious movies are able to close in on a
To
billion
keep going.
with their outrageousness, why couldn't a Top Gun Maverick make like a 600, 700 million by the
Right.
end of it globally? I could see that happening. What do you think, Last American Girl? What are you feeling about this box office here? Or do you have a
Um,
guess number, a guess prediction?
I don't know about I never know with specific numbers, but I do like what we're saying, and also how the rewatchability is always a big factor to me. And if I can go into something and tell someone who hasn't seen Top Gun that, oh, come with me to go see this. It's a standalone movie. You don't have to have watched the first one. You only need to understand this and this. Then I think that would be great for the movie and how much it makes.
Yes, and you know what? This is a movie. I'm glad we brought up premium screens as well,
Mhm.
because this is a movie like the rewatchability you mentioned. I could see myself, hey, let me try it out on a few premium screens, right? Like I want to see it on Screen X, and I want to go see it on IMAX. Maybe I want to go see it in Dolby Prime, right? To get different
Yeah.
experience, right? Different immersion experiences. So I could see it having some rewatchability for that, especially getting in the summertime. And that's, you're right, that's where it would definitely make up some money there. So my guess, like I said, I'm going around 60 million, very least, maybe upwards of 80 million globally. I'm hoping at least 500, anywhere upwards to 700 million. But yeah, I mean, that's basically our final question there. That was our 10th question.
Yay!
Wow, we had these amazing pregame questions. I basically finished my drink here, so I hope everybody had a good time. Drinking their drink of choice and staying with us this long, and having fun, getting hyped for this movie. Just our final thoughts here before we close it off. I'm excited for this movie, right? Got the need for speed, want to get on the highway to the danger zone again. So I'm more hyped up for this movie now. Last American Girl, any sign off you want to do? Your hype level. What are your last thoughts?
That I was excited for this, and you've known that I am a fan of Top Gun. I've been excited for this, but this pregame show really helped me hype up, and now I really need to go out and get my tickets. I haven't yet, but I will at least see this twice. We'll see how we do. So, Last American Girl here, signing off.
So perfect. So that will do it for our mega post game show of Top Gun Maverick. Well, our pre-game show. Sorry about that. Pre-game show. I will have a mega post game show in the future, hopefully, or a review or something of that nature. So you'll want to come back for that. So definitely make sure you subscribe right now so you get all these pre-game shows, post-game shows, reviews, rankings, news, physical media videos, you name it. We'll cover all things movies and entertainment here. Also, leave a comment below. How excited are you for Top Gun Maverick? What are you most expecting to see out of this movie? How do you think the box office will do? Leave those in the comments below. Also, this is Mega Mike the Movie Man reminding you to make every day a movie day.